Hello everyone. Chapter 4 is a heavy chapter, so I break it into 6 pieces. So the first piece you already revealed, that is biomes, and we have those learning outlines, learning outcomes. They look a little bit overwhelming, but I am confident after you went through the lecture and your exercises, and you'll be proficient with those topics. And these are the 6 topics. We already done one, so we go to the second one, natural selection. In nature, nothing exists alone. I want you to plant in your mind deeply about this concept, this core concept of environmental science, that is interrelatedness. And you keep thinking about that when we go through all the chapters. Now I want to challenge you. Do you know how many kinds of bees exist on Earth? The answer is between 10,000 and 20,000. Species is a group of organisms sharing the similarity, and they can breed with each other. For example, the bird cannot breed with a frog. So they are different species. Biodiversity, when I teach about diversity, I want you to have this idea in your mind when you look at biodiversity. That means many kinds of different species. And maintaining the diversity is the biggest, most difficult tasks on Earth in nowadays. And the living organisms are different from the non-living, because the living things, they maintain higher order. That's the first characteristic. And the second one is they have a purpose. Okay, so for example, the rock absorbs the heat of the sun and pretty much do nothing. And plants absorb the energy from the sun that goes through photosynthesis and respiration. Those very complex biological, biochemical processes. So living things has a purpose, and they use energy for a purpose. Living things can be studied at different scales. It goes from cells to tissues and organs, and then individual organisms. Individual organisms form populations. So what is population? There's a difference between species and population. When we talk about population, it refers to the same species living in the geographic area. For example, Texas oak trees and the Virginia oak trees, they are all oak trees. They are the same species, but they are living in a different area. So why that's important? Because different areas have different climate. The climate, temperature, precipitation will change the traits of the population. Communities are populations of different species living and interacting in a particular place. And all the communities plus the non-living environment, that consists ecosystems. And this is a picture to show you from low to high how the ecosystem is formed. It starts with the cell. Cell can form tissue and the organ and the individual organism, population, community. And finally, when you look at a picture of the community, you see two populations. One is wolf, the other is wolf's prey. So this is called community. That's a sum of populations in a particular area. And communities plus non-living abiotic factors, non-living parts of the environment. That is ecosystem. Quickly, a few concepts. Biomes, we just went through biomes, right? Regions of Earth have distinctive climates, organism, vegetation, and ecosystems. And I hope you still remember biomes were shaped by temperature and precipitation. So all the words ecosystem make up the biosphere. And the changes we see through over time are called evolution. So the last thing I want to mention is the niche. The textbook does not emphasize this concept, but it's very important to understand. Niche is the functional role of the living organism in its surroundings. It's not the niche we usually use as a comfortable, relaxed place. No. Niche in ecosystem is a function role of a living organism and all the ways it interacts with its surroundings. Now, a few quick concepts: mutation, selection, and extinction. Darwin did not identify how traits are passed, and later on, scientists discovered about genes. That's where our genetic information is. And we humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes. If you look at the right picture, and some of the genes at the same locations of the chromosome called alleles, they control a function, a trait. For example, brown eyes and blue eye, because the brown eye gene is more expressive, more dominant than blue eye genes. So if there's two genes altogether, the person shows brown color of eyes. Unless both of the alleles express blue eye genes, usually we all see brown eye. And so this is our genetic information all packed up in the DNA of the chromosomes. And the genotype means all the DNA, all the genetic information in our body, in the cells. And the phenotype is what we see in a living individual. For example, the brown eyes and the blue eyes. And gene mutations are random change of DNA. That is very important for evolution. If there's no change, there's no evolution. And the mutations can be positive or negative. For example, those sheep in the slide, and the short-legged sheep, okay, that's a phenotype you saw, resulted from the change of a gene. That is the change of the genotype. And the mutations is beneficial for humans because they cannot jump over higher fences, but it is very negative for the species to survive. How does life evolve? Darwin did this very interesting experiment. He sailed the ship several years around those islands, observing all the living creatures, including those finches. Those birds have different shapes of beaks, right? So when the drought comes, there's only bigger nuts left. The birds with the smaller beaks cannot survive. So Darwin's conclusion is there should be competition of the resources, and the individuals who have the traits that fit in the environment, they survive. So I want to quickly go over the processes of natural selection. So to summarize, first we see genetic changes. So the birds have all sorts of different beaks. That's random. That's not goal-oriented. That's random change. And then the organism within a species typically produce more offspring than needed, and most of the offspring died. So that's over reproduction. So who lives? Who has the favors and the advantages? So from out of the competition, some individuals have greater chance of surviving and the reproduction rate, okay, than others. And those individuals showing favorable variations, the population of those individuals will increase. That shows the natural selection. So this is the whole theory of natural selection. And there are some misconceptions about the process. The first one is evolution equals to progress. It doesn't necessarily be so. Okay, so the birds survived, have those beaks, but that doesn't mean the birds have those beaks because they're oriented onto that direction. The evolution occurs independently and randomly. And individuals can evolve. That's the wrong concept. The whole populations have to. And organisms are trying to adapt. There's no organism trying to adapt to anything. It's just the result. Okay, the natural selection of traits is a random response. Only the fittest, the individuals survive. No. The natural selection is a result. It's not a goal-oriented process. Survival of the fittest is ability to pass one genes to the next generation. That's just those individuals survived. Humans do not impact. Humans play a huge role in the natural selection. For example, as years pass by, we have a lot of herbicide-resistant weeds. We are breeding the super weeds because we keep spraying herbicides. So evolutionary patterns, we have a few evolutionary patterns. One is speciation, that's the production of new species. Extinction, that's the loss of entire species permanently from Earth. And the co-evolution, the textbook said it's one of the interactions. I agree with that, but I agree more co-evolution is one of the evolutionary pattern. It refers to two and more species influence each other's evolutionary direction, such as a hummingbird and the shape of the flower. So those pictures show you the result of speciation, and the beetles has more than 400 species. So when time goes on, there's always new species come out. And extinction, that's a loss of entire species, and this is a picture of co-evolution. So that concludes the second topic, natural selection.